There are two people who begin in the same place, grow up in the same neighborhood, face the same hardships, hear the same words of doubt, and carry wounds that no one else can see. 10 years later, one of them lives with purpose, discipline, and inner calm, steadily creating the life he has chosen. The other remains exactly where he began, not because he lacks talent, not because life has treated him more unfairly, but because he has never escaped the invisible prison inside his own mind. This prison has no stone walls, no iron bars, and no guards, yet it can hold a person more tightly than any locked door. It is built from thoughts such as, I am not good enough, I have no opportunities, it is already too late, I am afraid people will laugh at me, I am afraid of failure, I am afraid that even if I try, nothing will change. Every time you repeat a thought like this, you add another brick. Every time you trust your fear more than your ability, you place another lock on the door. The most dangerous thing is not being imprisoned. It is living inside the cage for so long that you begin to call it reality. You start to believe that your limitations are facts, that your current circumstances are your destiny, and that your past will determine your entire future. But the past only has power when you continue to give it power. A criticism spoken many years ago can become the voice inside your head today. One rejection can stop you from approaching 100 other doors. One failure can make you define yourself as a failure. From that moment on, you no longer see the world as it truly is. You see it through the lens of fear. The mind does not simply record life. The mind gives meaning to life. The same pain can be seen by one person as the end and by another as a lesson. The same closed door can send one person home in bitterness, while another uses it as a reason to search for a different path. The circumstances may be the same, but two different ways of seeing them can create two completely different destinies. This is the first awakening. Life does not only happen to you. Life is also shaped by the way you respond to what happens. You cannot control every event, but you can control the story you tell yourself about that event. When you tell yourself that you are a victim, you begin to live like a victim. When you tell yourself that you are being trained, you begin to discover strength inside adversity. Freedom does not begin when the world changes. Freedom begins when you finally see the cage within yourself. Observe the thoughts that appear whenever you try to do something new. Ask yourself which voice is holding you back. Is it truly your voice, or is it only the echo of people who once doubted you? Perhaps you have lived with these limitations for so long that you now consider them part of who you are. But a belief repeated many times can still be a lie. A fear carried for many years can still be confronted. An old identity can still be rewritten. You do not have to destroy the entire prison in a single day. You only need to recognize one brick, give it a name, and begin removing it. Today, that brick may be procrastination. Tomorrow, it may be your need for approval. After that, it may be the belief that you are not worthy of a greater life. Every brick you remove allows more light to enter. Every time you choose action over fear, the cage becomes weaker. Every time you keep a promise to yourself, you move closer to the free person you were always capable of becoming. Awakening is not the moment when you understand everything. It is the moment when you stop running away from the truth. The door was never locked from the outside. The key has always been in your hand, and the first step toward a new life is having the courage to realize that the person who can set you free is you. The key in your hand is not a sudden burst of confidence. It is the willingness to question every belief that has kept you small. Often people are trapped not by circumstances, but by conclusions they accepted too early. A child hears that he is slow, weak, careless, or ordinary, and because he does not yet know how to examine those words, he turns them into identity. Years later, he's no longer hearing the voice of the person who judged him. He is repeating that judgment to himself. This is how chains are created. They are not forged from iron. They are forged from repetition. A sentence repeated long enough becomes a belief. A belief repeated long enough becomes a pattern. And a pattern repeated long enough becomes a life. You may possess extraordinary potential and still live far beneath it. Because potential does not decide how far you go, belief decides how much of that potential you're willing to use. Imagine a powerful Ferrari standing on an open road, its engine built for tremendous speed, yet the driver moves at the pace of a bicycle. The machine is not weak, the driver is afraid. This is the condition of many lives. Ability, intelligence, and strength are present, but the mind has placed an invisible limit on the speed. You do not need a new engine. You need a new relationship with the fear that keeps your foot away from the accelerator. Limiting beliefs are dangerous because they often sound reasonable. They tell you to wait until you are ready, until you have more money, until people support you, until the risk disappears. But readiness is built through action, not before action. Courage is not the absence of fear. It is the decision that fear will no longer be the authority in your life. You cannot break a chain that you refuse to see. Begin by listening to the language you use about yourself. When you say, "I am not disciplined, I always fail, I am not a leader," you are not describing a permanent reality. You are strengthening a command. The mind listens to the words you repeat, then searches for evidence to prove them true. Change the command, and you change the direction of your attention. Do not replace an old lie with empty praise. Replace it with a stronger and more honest statement. Say, "I am learning discipline." Say, "I am becoming someone who finishes what he starts." Say, "I have failed before, but failure is teaching me how to move with greater wisdom." These words are instructions. They guide the actions that build evidence, and evidence builds a new identity. Confidence is not something you wait to feel. Confidence is the memory of promises you kept. Every small act of courage tells your mind that you are capable of more. Every task you complete, every rejection you survive, another link in the chain begins to crack. The mind may resist this change because even a painful identity can feel safe when it is familiar. Familiar pain often feels less frightening than unfamiliar growth. This is why people return to old habits even after seeing what those habits cost them. The prison is known, freedom is uncertain, but growth requires you to walk before the full path is visible. It asks you to act before the applause arrives. It asks you to trust the person you are becoming. Your potential has not disappeared because you ignored it. It has been waiting beneath years of hesitation, doubt, and borrowed opinions. You are not beginning from nothing. You are beginning with strength, intelligence, and courage that have not yet been fully trained. Do not ask whether you are capable of changing your life. Ask which belief must be challenged today so that your capability can finally move. The moment you stop treating every fearful thought as a command, you begin to reclaim your power. The moment you test the limiting belief through action, you weaken it. The moment you step beyond the boundary you once accepted, you discover that the boundary was never a wall. It was only a line drawn in the mind. Once that line is crossed, the next question is no longer whether you have potential. The next question is whether you are willing to prove it through the small choices you make every day. The small choices you make every day are where potential stops being an idea and begins becoming a life. Most people imagine success as a dramatic moment, a breakthrough, a promotion, a victory, a sudden transformation that everyone can see. But the visible result is only the final surface of a process that has been happening quietly for a long time. A strong life is rarely built in public. It is built in the early morning when the alarm rings and no one is watching. It is built when you read one more page, finish one more task, practice one more skill, and keep one more promise to yourself. These moments appear small because they do not create immediate applause. They do not change your life in one day, but life is not shaped by one day. It is shaped by what one day becomes when repeated. This is the compound effect. A single disciplined action may seem powerless, but repeated action gathers force. One healthy meal does not transform the body. 1 hour of study does not create mastery. One brave decision does not remove every fear. Yet each action is a seed. When planted again and again, it begins creating roots beneath the surface. The danger is that negative choices compound in the same way. One excuse feels harmless. One delayed promise feels unimportant. One wasted evening appears easy to recover, but repetition gives weight to what was once small. A habit is simply a decision that has been practiced until it no longer feels like a decision. Over time, your repeated choices become your direction, and your direction becomes your destination. This is why two people can begin from the same place and arrive in completely different worlds. The distance between them was not created by one enormous step. It was created by thousands of ordinary steps, moving in opposite directions. One person chose comfort a little more often. The other chose growth a little more often. One person protected excuses. The other protected discipline. At first, the difference was invisible. After years, it became impossible to ignore. Do not underestimate what is invisible. A farmer does not dig up the ground every morning to check whether the seed is working. He understands that growth requires patience, repetition, and trust. He waters what he cannot yet see. He protects the soil before there is any harvest to celebrate. You must learn to treat your mind, your character, and your future in the same way. Every time you study when you would rather scroll, you are watering a seed. Every time you remain calm instead of reacting, you are strengthening a root. Every time you complete what you said you would do, you are building a person who can be trusted. The reward is not only the result you eventually receive. The reward is the person being formed through the repetition. Many people quit because they expect the seed to become a tree too quickly. They mistake silence for failure. They think that because nothing has changed outside, nothing is changing inside. But the deepest work often happens before there is visible evidence. Discipline is growing before success appears. Focus is strengthening before opportunity arrives. Character is being built before the world recognizes it. You do not need to feel powerful every day. You need to remain faithful to the process. The actions may be small, but they must be consistent. Read the page, make the call, train the body, save the money, speak the truth, keep the promise. These are not insignificant tasks. These are votes for the person you are becoming. Every choice says, "This is who I am." When enough votes are cast in the same direction, identity begins to change. Then discipline no longer feels like something you force. It becomes something you represent. The compound effect is patient, and it does not argue with you. It simply multiplies what you repeat. If you repeat fear, fear grows. If you repeat courage, courage grows. If you repeat distraction, your attention weakens. If you repeat focus, your mind becomes sharper. The future is quietly being built by what you practice today. So stop waiting for a giant opportunity to prove your strength. Use the smallest moment in front of you. The seed does not need an audience. It only needs to be planted, protected, and watered long enough to become what it was always capable of becoming. And before that growth rises above the ground, it must first survive a season in the darkness. Before a seed can rise into the light, it must first survive a season in the darkness. This is the part of growth that few people celebrate because nothing appears to be happening. There is no applause beneath the soil. There is no audience watching the roots stretch deeper. There is only pressure, silence, uncertainty, and the daily demand to continue. This is why many people abandon the process too early. They mistake invisibility for failure. They believe that because the result cannot yet be seen, the effort must be wasted. But nature does not rush to prove itself. The bamboo tree spends years developing beneath the ground before it rises with astonishing speed. During those hidden years, it is not inactive. It is building the strengths required to support what will later become visible. Your life may be in the same season. You may be working without recognition. You may be learning without reward. You may be facing rejection after rejection while others seem to move ahead. You may feel buried, but being buried is not always the same as being defeated. Sometimes you are not being buried. You are being planted. The darkness is not there to erase you. It is there to deepen you. It teaches you to continue without praise, to believe without evidence, and to remain disciplined when emotion gives you no support. Anyone can move when the path is easy. Anyone can feel confident when the results are immediate. But character is revealed when the road remains silent. The hidden season asks a harder question. Will you continue when no one notices? Will you keep your standards when no one is checking? Will you still believe in the work when the work has not yet rewarded you? This is where resilience is formed, not in comfort, but in repetition under pressure. Not in public victory, but in private endurance. Every rejection can either weaken you or refine you. Every delay can either make you bitter or teach you patience. Every obstacle can either confirm your fear or strengthen your wisdom. The event itself does not decide what you become. Your interpretation decides what the event is allowed to create inside you. A closed door may be protecting you from a path that was too small. A season of waiting may be building the discipline you would have avoided if success had arrived too soon. A failure may be exposing the weakness that must be trained before greater responsibility can be carried. This does not mean pain is pleasant. It means pain can become useful when you stop treating it as proof that you are broken. The root does not complain about the weight of the soil. It uses resistance to become stronger. In the same way, the pressure you feel may be developing qualities that comfort could never teach. Patience, focus, humility, courage, and endurance are not ideas. They are muscles built through use. The person who can stand in success must first learn how to stand in uncertainty. The person who can lead others must first learn how to lead himself through doubt. The person who can carry a great vision must first become strong enough not to collapse under delay. Do not compare your hidden season with someone else's visible harvest. You do not know how long their roots were growing. You do not know what they endured before the result appeared. Comparison pulls you away from your own soil. Return to your work, water the seed, strengthen the root, keep showing up. Let each quiet day become evidence that you are becoming more stable your circumstances. There will be moments when quitting feels reasonable. In those moments, remember that the urge to stop often becomes strongest just before a new level of strength is formed. Stay with the process long enough to discover what it is building in you. The goal is not only to reach the surface. The goal is to become the kind of person who can remain standing once you arrive. Your hidden season, the shaping that person now. And when the first signs of growth finally appear, you will understand that the darkness was never empty. It was the place where your roots were formed. But to carry that growth forward, you must learn one more truth. What happened to you is not the same as who you are. What happened to you is not the same as who you are. A failure is an event, not an identity. A rejection is a moment, not a definition. A mistake is information, not a final sentence. Yet many people take one painful experience and turn it into a permanent name. They fail once and say, "I am a failure." They are abandoned once and say, "I am unworthy of love." They lose money and say, "I am incapable of success." This is how temporary pain becomes a lifelong prison. The event ends, but the label remains. The wound closes, but the story continues. And because behavior follows identity, people begin acting according to the name they have given themselves. A person who believes he is weak will avoid difficult situations. A person who believes she always fails will stop trying before the work becomes meaningful. A person who believes he is not disciplined will use every mistake as proof that change is impossible. The problem is not only what happened. The deeper problem is the meaning attached to what happened. Watch a child learning to walk. The child falls again and again, sometimes 10 times, sometimes 50 times. Yet the child does not sit on the floor and declare that walking is not meant for him. He does not turn a fall into a personality. He simply rises because the fall is part of learning. Somewhere along the way, adults forget this wisdom. They become more concerned with appearing capable than becoming capable. They become ashamed of the very process that creates mastery. But every skilled person was once unskilled. Every confident person once faced fear. Every strong person once experienced weakness. Growth does not require a perfect past. It requires a new interpretation of the past. There was once a man who lost everything he had built. His money disappeared. His business collapsed, and the world assumed that his success was gone. But he understood something others did not. He had lost the result, but he had not lost the person who created the result. The discipline, knowledge, courage, and judgment that built his success still lived within him. Because he did not identify with the loss, he was able to build again. This is the power of identity. When your identity is rooted only in possessions, praise, status, or achievement, every loss becomes a threat to your existence. But when your identity is rooted in character, failure becomes something you can use. You can lose a position without losing your value. You can lose an opportunity without losing your potential. You can be rejected without becoming unworthy. Ask yourself what story you repeat when no one is listening. Do you say that life always works against you? Do you say that you are too damaged, too late, too ordinary, too afraid? These stories may feel true because they have been repeated for years, but repetition does not make them accurate. You are allowed to question the identity that pain created. You are allowed to stop carrying a name that no longer serves you. Begin with language. Do not say, I am lazy. Say, I have practiced avoidance and I can practice action. Do not say, I am broken. Say, I have been hurt and I am learning how to heal. Do not say, I always fail. Say, snorts, I have failed before and I'm becoming wiser through experience. This is not denial. It is responsibility. You are not pretending the past did not happen. You are refusing to let the past decide what must happen next. A new identity is not built by words alone. It is built by evidence. Every time you act with courage, you prove that fear does not control you. Every time you finish a difficult task, you prove that discipline can be trained. Every time you rise after disappointment, you prove that failure cannot define you. These actions become witnesses for a new story. Slowly, the old label loses authority. You begin to see yourself not as someone trying to change, but as someone who is changing. This shift matters because people naturally protect the identity they believe is theirs. When you see yourself as disciplined, you begin choosing what a disciplined person would choose. When you see yourself as resilient, you stop treating discomfort as a reason to quit. When you see yourself as responsible, you stop waiting for rescue. Your future behavior will follow the image you hold within. So, choose that image carefully. You are not your worst day. You are not your last mistake. You are not the opinion of someone who could not see your value. You are the person who can learn, adapt, rebuild, and rise. But this new identity must be protected through action, especially on the days when emotion disappears. Because once you decide who you are becoming, the next challenge is learning how to live according to that decision when you do not feel like it. Once you decide who you are becoming, the next challenge is learning how to live according to that decision when you do not feel like it. This is where most people lose control of the game. They make choices according to mood, energy, comfort, and temporary desire. When they feel inspired, they work. When they feel tired, they delay. When they feel confident, they move. When fear appears, they retreat. A life directed by emotion becomes unstable because emotion changes like weather. Some mornings are clear, others are heavy. If your actions rise and fall with every internal storm, your future will never have a steady direction. Principles are different. Principles are the anchor beneath the ship. The waves may become violent, the wind may change, and the sky may darken, but the anchor keeps the vessel from drifting. A principle is a decision made before the moment of weakness arises. It tells you who you will be when comfort begins negotiating. It tells you what you will do when no one is watching. It gives your life structure when emotion offers excuses. This does not mean you must ignore your feelings. Feelings contain information, but they should not always carry authority. You can feel afraid and still speak. You can feel tired and still finish. You can feel uncertain and still take the next step. Strength is not the absence of emotion. Strength is the ability to act without becoming a servant to emotion. Many people wait for motivation because they believe action must begin with feeling. But action often creates the feeling they are waiting for. You do not need to feel disciplined before you begin. You begin and discipline grows. You do not need to feel confident before you enter the room. You enter and confidence begins collecting evidence. You do not need to feel ready before you start. Readiness is often the result of movement. The first step changes the mind because motion breaks the illusion of helplessness. Every time you act despite resistance, you teach yourself that discomfort is not a command. This is how self-trust is built. Confidence is not created by repeating powerful words while continuing to betray your commitments. It is created by evidence. You tell yourself that you will wake early, then you rise. You promise to finish the task, then you complete it. You choose to remain calm, then you refuse to react impulsively. Each kept promise becomes a brick in the foundation of self-respect. Each broken promise weakens that foundation. Your mind records everything. It knows whether your words have weight. If you repeatedly abandon your commitments, your inner voice stops believing you. Then even your strongest goals feel empty because the person making the promise has lost credibility. To restore that credibility, begin small. Do not make dramatic promises that depend on perfect conditions. Choose one standard you can protect every day. It may be 10 minutes of reading. It may be 1 hour without distraction. It may be finishing the hardest task before seeking comfort. The size of the promise matters less than the act of keeping it. Repetition creates trust, trust creates confidence, and confidence creates momentum. This is how principles turn identity into reality. They remove the daily argument. A disciplined person does not ask whether training feels convenient. A focused person does not ask whether distraction feels attractive. A responsible person does not ask whether blame would feel easier. The decision has already been made. This frees energy because you no longer negotiate with every emotion that passes through you. You simply return to the standard. There will be days when you fall short. Principle does not demand perfection. It demands return. Miss once, return the next moment. Lose focus, return to the task. React badly, take responsibility, and return to calm. Mastery is not never falling. Mastery is reducing the distance between falling and rising. The faster you return, the less power the mistake receives. Over time, your principles become a quiet force. They guide your mornings, shape your habits, protect your attention, and strengthen your character. You begin to understand that freedom is not doing whatever you feel. Freedom is no longer being controlled by every feeling. When principle becomes stronger than impulse, you stop drifting. You become the one holding the wheel. Once you can govern your actions, you are ready for the final responsibility, to decide where this disciplined life will go, and to write the next chapter with your own hand. Once you become the one holding the wheel, you must decide where your life is going. Discipline without direction can still become an empty routine. Strength without purpose can still be wasted. The final responsibility is not only to control your actions, but to choose the meaning behind them. You are the author of the chapter that comes next. You may not have written the beginning. You may not have chosen the family you were born into, the pain you experienced, the people who left, the opportunities you missed, or the failures that marked your past, but the pen is in your hand now. The next sentence does not have to repeat the last one. Too many people spend their lives rereading old pages. They study every betrayal, every mistake, every moment of shame, then wonder why they cannot move forward. The past can teach you, but it should not become the only book you ever read. Ask a different question. Do not keep asking, why did this happen to me? Ask, what is this teaching me? Do not ask, why was I not chosen? Ask, what must I build so that rejection no longer controls me? Do not ask, why is the road difficult? Ask, who am I becoming by continuing to walk it? Better questions create stronger thoughts, and stronger thoughts create better decisions. Your mind is a garden, and every repeated thought is a seed. Some thoughts grow into courage, patience, focus, and peace. Others grow into resentment, fear, envy, and defeat. The garden does not decide what enters it. The gardener must decide. If you do not protect your mind, the world will plant for you. Other people will place their fear in your soil. Distraction will spread like weeds. Comparison will steal the light from your own progress. Complaining will consume the energy needed for action. This is why mental discipline must become a daily practice. Remove the weeds before they develop deep roots. When a thought says that you are not capable, examine it. When fear tells you to remain small, challenge it. When bitterness invites you to carry yesterday into today, release it. Protecting your mind does not mean avoiding reality. It means refusing to feed what makes you weaker. Feed the thoughts that return you to responsibility. Feed the belief that you can learn. Feed the understanding that discomfort is temporary, but the character built through discomfort can remain. Every morning offers you a blank page. What you do with the first hour writes the tone of the day. What you repeat through the day writes the shape of your habits. What you repeat for years writes the direction of your life. Do not wait for a perfect moment to become the person you know you must become. The perfect moment is often another disguise worn by fear. Begin before confidence arrives. Begin while the path is uncertain. Begin with the resources you have. From the place where you stand, your first step does not need to impress anyone. It only needs to be honest. Choose one thought to remove. Choose one promise to keep. Choose one action that your future self will thank you for. Then repeat it. A new chapter is not written through one emotional declaration. It is written through consistent lines of action. Some days the writing will be clear. Some days it will feel slow. There will be pages filled with doubt, correction, and struggle. Continue writing. The story is not ruined because one page is painful. The story is not finished because one season is dark. You have already learned that darkness can grow roots, failure can produce wisdom, and discipline can restore self-trust. Now bring those lessons together. See the prison, remove the chains, plant the seeds, strengthen the roots. Reject the old identity, live by principle, and move with purpose. This is how a life changes from the inside outward. Do not surrender authorship to fear, circumstance, or the opinions of others. They may influence the story, but they do not own the pen. Stand up today with a new decision. Decide that your past will become training, not a sentence. Decide that your thoughts will become tools, not masters. Decide that your actions will reflect the person you are becoming, not the person you once believed you were. Your future is not waiting to will discovered. It is waiting to be created. The page is open. The pen is ready. Write the next chapter with courage.